My subject today is, can anything be Judeo-Christian? This is an age in which news has been superseded by propaganda and education by brainwashing and indoctrination. From the advertising used to sell shoddy goods to the classes in your schools designed to make your children into obedient robots of a socialist state, the art of persuasion has displaced the simple virtue of truth. The masters who rule out of the shadows, using as their puppets those who govern us to drive this nation ever further down the path to socialism, they seek to gain control of your mind, for with that they will rule you in all things. And one of the great fortresses of the mind, which they must capture if they are to change your destiny, is your religion. Suddenly we have been bombarded from all sides with references to our Judeo-Christian religion and our Judeo-Christian heritage. Just as all the other Communist Party line phrases, warmonger, hate-monger, extreme right-wing, and so forth, have appeared suddenly in all our newspapers and most of our magazines when the Communist Party decreed it, so likewise has the similarly inspired phrase Judeo-Christian appeared suddenly in the writings of hosts of men who seek to mold public opinion. If this were the spontaneous idea of some one writer who originated, he would have a monopoly on it for some time. Instead, it has been used simultaneously by the many who serve the party until finally even the fumbling copyists join in the chorus, not knowing whose purpose they are serving. Is there any truth in this phrase, Judeo-Christian? Is Christianity derived from Judaism? Does Christianity have anything in common with Judaism? Who can say with authority what the answer may be? Certainly, Jesus Christ is the great authority on this subject, for no one knows better than he, and next would come his disciples. So let us ask them whether Christianity can be truthfully called Judeo-Christian. The foundation and highest authority of Judaism is the Talmud. In the time of Jesus Christ, this bore the name of the tradition of the elders. At that time, there were two principal religious sects, the Sadducees and the Pharisees. The Sadducees were gross materialists who did not believe in a resurrection of the dead or in any other form of immortality. They recognized the written law as given by Moses, but it was lip service rather than honest obedience. In the time of Christ, these controlled the priesthood, and the high priest was always chosen from their ranks. The Pharisees, on the other hand, recognized the existence of angels and spirits, both good and bad, and believed in the resurrection of the dead. While they recognized the written law as given in the Scriptures, they also claimed that there was a great body of unwritten tradition, which was of at least equal authority with the written law, and many claimed that the tradition was of greater authority. By their tradition, they undertook to explain and elaborate upon the law. This was the tradition of the elders, to which the name of Talmud was later given. It had its beginning at Babylon during the Babylonian captivity of the nation of Judah, where it developed in the form of the commentaries of various rabbis undertaking to explain and apply the law. This traditional or Talmudic Judaism was very different from the true religion which we find in the Old Testament. The late Rabbi Stephen Wise, who was the chief rabbi of the United States, expressed this so clearly and accurately that I cannot improve upon his words. He said, "The return from Babylon and the adoption of the Babylonian Talmud marks the end of Hebrewism and the beginning of Judaism." Since the true religion of the Old Testament was the religion of the real Hebrews, not Jews, the learned rabbi was quite right in calling it Hebrewism and noting that it was abandoned when the Talmud or tradition of the elders was adopted, and that this also constitutes the beginning of Judaism. Nothing could be clearer than the total antagonism between Judaism and Christianity. All the opposition to Jesus Christ, including their murder of him upon the cross, came from Judaism and those who professed it as their religion. And remember that the total entirety of Judaism was represented by the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Now, with this in mind, let us review the Gospels and see if we can find anything which can truthfully be called Judeo-Christian. The scene opens with John the Baptist at the River Jordan, baptizing those who came to him in genuine repentance of their sins. And we read in Matthew 3, verse 7, "But when he saw many of the Pharisees and Sadducees come to his baptism, he said unto them, O children of vipers, who has warned you to flee from the wrath to come?" John must have felt he didn't get any of his religion from Judaism, the Talmud, the tradition of the elders. But what of Jesus Christ himself? Did he feel that he owed any of his religion to Judaism? Let's let him answer that. In Matthew 15, verses 1 to 9, we read, "Then came to Jesus scribes and Pharisees, which were of Jerusalem, saying, Why do thy disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they wash not their hands when they eat bread. But he answered and said unto them, Why do ye also transgress the commandments of God by your tradition? Thus have ye made the commandment of God of no effect by your tradition. Ye hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying, This people draws nigh unto me with their mouth, and honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. But in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men." Do you find anything Judeo-Christian in that? Jesus was always warning people to beware of the false religion of the Pharisees and Sadducees. For example, in Mark 8, verse 15, we read, "And he charged them, saying, Take heed, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees." In Matthew 5, verse 20, again he said, "For I say unto you, that except your righteousness shall exceed that of the scribes and Pharisees, ye shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven." In Luke 11, verse 39, it says, "And the Lord said unto him, Now do ye Pharisees make clean the outside of the cup and platter, but your inward part is full of ravening and wickedness." Was it from this source that Jesus Christ drew Christianity? No, you will find nothing Judeo-Christian in that. Turn now to the 23rd chapter of Matthew. In verses 13, 14, 15, 23, 25, 27, and 29, 7 different times, Jesus Christ begins his denunciation of them with the words, "Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites." And remember that the Pharisees represented the highest form of Judaism. Was this Judeo-Christian? Without one single exception, Jesus Christ utterly rejected and condemned Judaism in language as strong as he ever used against complete idolatry. But what about the Pharisees and Sadducees? Did they show any attempt to become reconciled to him and have a part in some so-called Judeo-Christian religion? No. When they heard of his miraculous healing of the sick, or even saw it with their own eyes, their attitude is summed up in Matthew 12, verse 24. But when the Pharisees heard it, they said, "This fellow doth not cast out devils, but by Beelzebub, the prince of the devils." They totally rejected him. For example, in the 7th chapter of John, where they sent officers to arrest Jesus so they could murder him, but the officers came back without him. And we read, "Then came the officers to the chief priests and Pharisees, and they said unto them, Why have ye not brought him? The officers answered, Never spoke man like this man. Then answered them the Pharisees, Are ye also deceived? Have any of the rulers or of the Pharisees believed on him?" And finally, their only reaction to him was that of hatred and murder. Matthew 12, verse 14, Mark 3, verse 6, and John 47, verse 53 all record the incident. Then gathered the chief priests and Pharisees a council and said, "What shall we do? For this man does many miracles. If we let him thus alone, all men will believe in him." Then from that day forth they took counsel together for to put him to death. In fact, as we read in John 12, verses 10 and 11, they even conspired to murder poor Lazarus, whom Jesus had raised from the dead, because this miracle caused many to believe in Jesus Christ. Is this Judeo-Christian? Judeo it truly is, but Christian it is not, and never was. Wake up. Who is behind this great propaganda effort to brainwash you into thinking that your religion is Judeo-Christian? Why are they spending so much money to give it such great publicity? What do they hope to accomplish by it? It is false and sinister to the utmost extreme. Never be misled by it. Your Redeemer, Jesus Christ himself, condemned it in the strongest terms. Believe him, not the propagandist.